Why did everybody call me?
No children.
Sounds like it was needed.
Only from the lunch.
I know, but by myself.
Maybe that's right.
This morning? Wow. I'm so glad it didn't help me. Text messages to realize that I don't want to click on it. You should be able to block it without it. One, I got one. Yeah. One that said, it is. It'll go away, right? Right, like it's like fishing. They're coming on different models.
They're saying.
Hello. Hello.
By the way, that's Duffy. That's why I was surprised she didn't put it over. I think she had the up where she's like, where there's wrapped. And by the way, I am remembering. She said,
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I understand that you probably could have filled the Jaguar Stadium if you were allowed to do that, but usually have a little bit more room, and I have this fuzzy little animal microphone up here, so hopefully I won't drop anything. I'm Mike Campbell. I'm a chaplain with Community Hospice and part of the team that had the privilege to help care for Duffy at the end of her life. And today, have no doubt about it, we are here to celebrate that extraordinary life. While there is much grief in this room, there also exists all the memories of Duffy, of a life well lived and everything that she was and meant to each of you out there today. And that's what we are here to remember. And you all have a chance to participate in that, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But get ready, because I would encourage you all to participate as much as you possibly can. So let's begin this morning with a quick prayer. Almighty God, creator and sustainer of all life, we thank you for the gift that is Duffy McCoy. We pray that though her time on this earth is over, she is now with you, healed from her illnesses, and healed not only in body, but also in mind and in soul. As her life is remembered and celebrated here this morning, we pray that your presence would be felt, that you would grant your peace to all who need it, and remind everyone that you are truly in control. Amen. Just to kind of set the scene, I like to read a couple of spiritual observations from a wide variety of people, and kind of trim this down. I think most of these are pretty good, and it just helps to center us as we begin to talk about Duffy's life. Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese writer, said, "Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it." Chuck Palahniuk, also an author, said, "We all die. The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will." Emily Dickinson said, "That it will never come again is what makes life so sweet." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "It's not length of life, but depth of life." Anais Nin, "People living deeply have no fear of death." Henry David Thoreau said, "Live your life, do your work, then take your hat." Khalil Gibran from the Prophet said, "For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one." Lao Tzu said, "A man with outward courage dares to die. A man with inner courage dares to live." And last, from my favorite philosopher of all, Bob Dylan, "He who is not busy being born is busy dying." And then I also like to read one piece of scripture. I'm a Christian, so I go with Jesus. And out of 1 Corinthians 15, it says, "Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus." Life, as we experience it on this earth, holds many truths. But perhaps the greatest truth is that life on this earth is impermanent. It has a beginning and it has an end. Now, when we're young, which I'll generously say lasts into our 40s, we don't think too much about this great truth. Maybe a grandparent will die or a friend will die earlier than we think they should. But usually our exposure to and our contemplation of death is minimal. But then something starts to happen. Our parents may die. My own mom died 8 years ago this summer. This is especially true when your second parent dies and you're now among the oldest or perhaps the oldest in your family. You become the matriarch or the patriarch. But having a parent die before we do is natural, so we can usually come to terms with it as long as our parental relationships were okay. But then our siblings and cousins and peers begin to die, and we begin to think more and more about how impermanent time really is. It seems to speed up the older that we get. And each time someone close to us dies, we grieve. And the closer we are to that person, the more we grieve. It's tough to lose your parents. It's much tougher to lose your spouse. Maybe the toughest loss is when a child dies before his or her parents. Death makes us wonder, it makes us think, and it demands answers that usually are not readily forthcoming. So how do people deal with this great truth of death? Well, it often depends on your spiritual outlook. Is there another truth even greater than death, or must we somehow find a way to accept that death is it? Atheists, by definition, do not believe there's an active God who provides for any kind of post-death experience. If the person who dies has lived a good life, an atheist will often celebrate all the good that person has done. And this does provide consolation. What about an agnostic who just isn't sure? Well, in my experience, agnostics often become believers during time of loss. They tip the scale toward the believing side so they can believe that the person who has died will experience an afterlife and will be healed from their illness. Then there are believers, Christians, and those who practice other faith traditions. Most believe in an afterlife, and while sad that someone close has died, are better able to be okay with it because of the belief that the person has been healed and is in that better place that so many people talk about. As a hospice chaplain, my job is to help patients come to terms with their illness and their mortality, and also to help family and friends deal with loss, both before and after it happens. I meet people where they are, not where I am, so I've had to come up with some general ways to speak about loss. So what are some good things people can do when they've experienced a loss, regardless of their belief? May I suggest 3, and I promise you, brief options. This is not a 30-minute sermon. First thing is, whatever your theology, even if it's non-belief, use it to its fullest. If you don't believe in God, then celebrate the life of the person who has died. Remember the good times, the strength of the person's character, their great accomplishments. What if you're not sure about the whole God thing? I suggest that you be hopeful. Until we ourselves die, we can never truly know the truth. It's the one thing I tell people we don't get to practice. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computer, was not known for his belief in a traditional God, yet practiced the tenets of Buddhism. He lived a good life and was of great service to mankind through the technology that he developed. Unless you have teenagers, and then you question me. As the story goes, the moment before he died, he stared out into space and he said but one word. Now, I know this was a while ago, but does anybody remember what that word was? He said, "Wow." Then he died. What did this mean? We don't know, but maybe, just maybe, he had a glimpse of something spectacular that awaits us all. And if you're a believer, you already have the confident expectation that the person who has died is truly in that better place with God. And while you'll still grieve, you may also be awaiting the time when you and your loved one are reunited. Where in Christian terms, we're in heaven and there's no more mourning, crying, sickness, and where death has been defeated for all eternity. The second thing we can do when we experience a loss is to cling to family and friends. I've seen even very dysfunctional families pull together over a death and provide support to each other. Of course, strong families do an even better job. In the Orthodox Jewish tradition, when a person dies, friends and families sit Shiva with the person who have experienced the loss. Words aren't necessary, just their presence. There's a lesson in that. That can be very, very helpful. Now, the truth of the matter is, some people who support you will only do so for a short period of time. It's normal. They need to get back to their own lives. But you need to have a person or two for the long haul. And the last good thing you can do is to keep the person who has died alive through the telling of stories and memories. And I'm going to jumpstart that process with you guys today. Don't put aside celebrating holidays because your loved one is no longer there to participate. Instead, continue to remember the traditions valued by that person. Bring that person's joy forward. That way, the person may not physically be here anymore, but remains present through the goodness and the accomplishments of their life. Now, I want to be clear, even if you do all the things I've just recommended, and I have this in caps here, you will still grieve. It's normal. Sometimes it becomes too much to bear and you shouldn't hesitate to ask for help. Family and friends will offer suggestions, but everyone grieves in their own unique way. So when it comes to grieving, good enough is good enough. However you do it, it's just fine. I want to share a saying which I used to have taped in my bathroom mirror until it got all messed up from the humidity and the ink ran. But I remember it because I look at it every day. I commend it to you as well, and it says, "I beg to urge you, everyone, life and death is the great matter. All things pass quickly away. Awaken, awaken, and take heed. Make use of this precious life." So I told you before, we're going to have an opportunity to share about Duffy, and this is the most important part of why we're gathered here together. The closer people are to Duffy, the more they grieve, the more they need to hear what people have to say about her. It can be just a remark about her, it can be a story, a comment, anything you want to share about her. What made her so remarkable to you? And you know who that's going to benefit? Mostly the people right here, especially Brian. He needs to hear this stuff. The family needs to hear this stuff. I know most of you are family. But it's amazing how some people know stories that other people don't, even in a close family. It's really interesting to hear that. So I'm going to encourage people to share. Brian's going to share, but he's going to share last. So the way we're going to do this is, you can do it from your seat. You can stand. If you have a big mouth like me, you can come up here. It doesn't really matter. That's not the point. And the point is not to be the greatest speaker in the world either. It's not about that. It's about sharing and helping the family just understand how much Duffy meant to each and every one of you, or as many of you who care to share. I'm going to start by reading a quick poem, which I thought was absolutely perfect, and I actually found it. And I thought of Brian when I found it, and I think God kind of led me to it. It's by a guy named Yehuda Halevi, who's actually Jewish. It's from like the 1100s. So I think a poem from the 1100s, but okay, I read it, and this is awesome. And I hope I read it well, because it's important that it be read well. It's called "'Tis a Fearful Thing." 'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be. To be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. All right, that came out okay. You never know. All right, who is the bravest soul in the room who wants to lead us off and have something to say about it? Good man, came up.
Duffy asked us not to mourn her death, but celebrate her life. So I won't mention the countless hours of torture I gave her while I played Hungry Hungry Hippo. I bet the first thing she does when she gets to heaven is to ask God to get rid of that game. Duffy's been in my life pretty much my whole life. Must have been hard being the stepmother in a McCoy household. But she held her own and then some. Although I think she had some doubts after our North Carolina trip. For those who don't know, please ask my dad about nearly drowning me and Liz in freezing cold, raging white waters in an inner tube. And then be sure to ask him where the key was to the car, because he was frozen to a delicate part. So, some things that I remember. One day she decided to wax my linoleum floors, not thinking that I was wearing socks. So my dad and Duff were downstairs, and the floor was all waxed, and it was like Fred Flintstone. My feet just tried to catch the ground, and I'm sure they had a nice laugh at my expense, but we never heard Duffy's laugh. She You knew it was her laughing. Some of you may know Duffy from her years of her salon in Estatica, Los Olas, or Pier 66. I gotta tell you, it was a weird feeling paying for a haircut for the first time at 30. She was also the one who cut my tail off in the 80s. I should probably thank her for that. Some of you who may know her from her time with horses. Her and my dad got into horses 25 years ago. And oddly, she got the craziest horse of all time, Chance. If you've ridden Chance, you took a chance with your life. Some of you may know Duffy from her camera club. I like to think Uncle Dominic was her influence on that one. My favorite photo of her was the one of the bubble in Central Park, but that one I saw the crystal ball. That's a great photo. Have you seen that one outside? It's my favorite, I think. Some of you may know her from her Tai Chi. Here she is, post-liver transplant, fighting the deadliest cancer of all time, doing Tai Chi on the beach. And I pulled a muscle putting my shoes on. So to say she was strong until the end is an understatement. So no matter how you do Duffy, I know without a doubt, she made your life better. The world would be a better place if we listened to her maxim and acted as if life were a camera and we focused on what was important, developed from the negatives, and when things didn't work out, just took another shot. Rest in peace. Thank you. Thank you.
Good, John. Thank you. I'm Tim, if you don't know me. I am Duffy's biological son. And
I gotta do it, you know.
Take your time, no
Good.
rush.
And I've known her 5 years. And we did 45 years for that. And I'm going to read something. It's from Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, but to give you hope. In the future. And she gave me that future and that hope. And what many of you don't know is that when she was pregnant with me at 16, she ran away. And if she didn't run away, I might not be here, and my two amazing sons as well. So I feel the hand of God as to why I'm here, and my boys, and I'm grateful. I had great parents along the way, and in 2015, the records in Ohio were unlocked, and they announced that in 2014, and I would always come close, like start filling out forms and stuff. Finally, in 2014, when they said, okay, records are going to be unlocked, I submitted the application. 2 weeks later, went to the mailbox at lunch, and I was like, oh my gosh, my name was Mark, and her name is Shaleen McCall. So I spent the next 4 hours on Google. Anyway, short story is we met, and I'll tell you a funny story. A couple weeks later, told the boys, you have a grandmother that you didn't know existed. And Josh was in the 3rd grade in the back seat of the car while we were talking. He goes, does that mean she's going to make us cookies?
And she did.
And so for the next 5 years at every soccer game and basketball game, Tyler and Joshua got cookies. And we developed an amazing relationship with Duffy and Brian. And just thinking about her always being an encourager, always being a defender, being extremely loyal. She was funny. She was a thinker, but usually she was thinking about how she could benefit somebody else in this room, not how she could benefit herself. She was a giver. And I'm grateful for the 5 years that we had, and even more grateful to watch Brian with her and the example that he is. To my 2 boys. And see how he loved Duffy and how he took care of her this last year especially. Could have asked for anyone better. And we love you, Brian. You're stuck with us, so.
You're stuck with the rest of it.
All right, tough acts to follow, but that's all right. Who's next?
If nobody from the family wants to come up. Oh, God.
Good morning, everybody. I hadn't planned to
I'm a
say anything before you can see what a good speaker I am. Animal. I couldn't not say something about Duffy. There were 2 things. You either loved Duffy or you really, really, really loved Duffy. And I do believe that everybody in this room and whoever's watching remotely really, really, really loved her. She started out as my wife's boss, but she quickly became a mentor and her friend when Duffy had the airport down here in Fort Lauderdale. And that's when I met her, just before Thanksgiving, 1978. She facilitated my wife's and my relationship. And here we are, 38 years married. Brian and Duffy were there when we got married. Oh God, it's so hard. There's so many things you want to say. She was like all the 3 B's. She was bold, she was brassy, and she was brave. And she was very talented. And when Brian came along, that's when all these wonderful things exploded. I mean, with the horses, the Tai Chi. She could only have done that with knowing Brian was behind her all the way. And Brian always encouraged her. And if Duffy was happy, Brian was happy. That's the way it was.
Absolutely.
The toughest thing, I'm gonna finish. The toughest thing for us, and I said to Brian outside, for Tricia and I, was knowing that the end was imminent when we got the text message the other week. The first thing we wanted to do is call and come, but we had to respect Duffy's and Brian's wishes. And the thing that springs to mind here is that song that Frank Sinatra sang. I did it my way. And Duffy did it her way. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Elizabeth?
And my name is Elizabeth Liu. Probably you see some picture, Duffy and I, we do the Tai Chi. All right. Here we go. I have known Duffy for only a few short years. So I met her in the Tai Chi class when I instructed in Berea, Ponte Vedra. But in those few years, she had made a lasting impression on my heart. In the Chinese culture, Tai Chi is common practice. Everybody practice in the park in the morning. You see them, many people, hundreds of people in the group. So also Tai Chi called the moving meditation. Duffy had a love for Tai Chi. And also she mentioned that Tai Chi is not only a workout, but a lifestyle. It brought her a spirit of peace. There's a strong energy that flows through a group that is practicing Tai Chi, and Duffy had as much energy as anyone else in the class. You could feel it. You could see it in her eyes. You could hear it in her voice. She loved it. She would never miss a class. Duffy wasn't satisfied, only practice Tai Chi, only learning Tai Chi, but she wanted to help others experience the health benefit the regular Tai Chi practice offers. So she studied and practiced and got her own instructor certificate. She was a determined woman. Duffy was a kind and compassionate person. She knew a lot about computer, and I didn't know much. I know the Tai Chi movement. Okay, she helped me on the computer, and also helped me on the Zoom class. Right now, nobody doing the person-in-person practice. Right now, we're on the Zoom class. So she said, "You can do it. I'll show you how to do it. I'll teach you how to do it on the computer." Yes, she did. Right now, we practice 5 times a day, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock in the morning. Without her, we don't have class. I'm not very good on the computer. So I'm thankful for that. And also, one time, you know, she's an Amazon shopper, right? She's an Amazon girl. Yeah, she purchased a bill. Have a double dragon, it's the copper, and they have a string attached there. I don't know, Brian, have you seen it before? No, that's a secret. Yeah. And so every morning when we start our Zoom class, so I tap the bell. And that reminded me and the others in the class of her. So she learned a balance exercise that she's teaching us on the Zoom class, in class 2. Now we call it do the Duffy. And I'll show you how to do the Duffy, okay? She said, so 1 and 2 and 3. You have to hold it for 3 seconds. The other side, 1 and 2 and 3. Another 3 seconds, okay? I suggest everybody to practice the balance now, okay? We call it do the Duffy. We love her. Yeah. So in the morning, we could include the do the Duffy in the morning exercise in the Tai Chi. We still routine continually to do that each morning, and do the Duffy. And my wonderful friend and Tai Chi student, Duffy McCoy. One more thing I want to read is one of my student, Tai Chi student. His name is Stan Harris. He wrote to Duffy and me and the Tai Chi family. Duffy, setting baby birds free. She's now the baby birds free to flow and fly, to move with the wind without restraint and climb to the heights where only her thought could take her before. Now she's young and free and flying there to touch the lives of her Tai Chi family, with whom she soared with on the earth, with who are still bounded by this earthly body of clay. But as we learn with her help and free ourselves from our own self-imposed limits, she now becomes an assistant to our class, assisting our teacher, who we all love and follow, like Duffy loved and followed her so joyously before, more joyfully now. We must go on as we are taught and encouraged. Our teachers so lovingly guide us, and Duffy will always be there to assist her and encourage us from above as we work below. Thank you, Lord, for showing us with a means to keep going strong until our last breath, to care so deeply that we never give up showing our love to others, inviting them to join in and learn and grow as we have been taught to do. As each baby bird arrives to join Duffy, we will remember what we have practiced here, because the Tai Chi releases us to freedom, to heights we can only reach with the help of our dear teacher and Duffy and our entire Tai Chi family. High reach, everybody. Our hearts are heavy. The heaviness will give way to light and freedom, and the happiness as we practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just in my brief time with Brian, it was really clear to me that Duffy was fierce, no doubt. That she wouldn't compromise, and even through her illnesses, tried to live each and every day to the absolute very best of her ability. That's a pretty unique quality. Who else?
I am Bill. I'm Duffy's nephew. My family's watching online. Couldn't be here. She was my only aunt, but she was still my favorite. She had a special gift. I remember after high school coming to visit my cool aunt in Fort Lauderdale, and I brought a buddy of mine. We weren't exactly walking the straight and narrow path back then, and I found the reach of my Uncle Brian and to get me out of a situation. And I just, those kind of memories are just what I hang on to with her. It was always fun. My kids love her. She's gonna be missed. She's definitely one of a kind. And I'm very happy that she did peace. She fought. And this will pass.
Found that the more love someone is, the more emotion there is in times like this. And I'm seeing an awful lot of emotions from everybody today. So it's a lot. Anyone else?
I hope I can do this. This is awful. Only Harry and Jean McCall. Help me. Get up there, sister. Don't do things like this. Everyone that knows me knows I'm quiet, loving. But not around Duffy. I met Duffy at a feng shui class. Duffy knew more than a teacher. I even knew more than the teacher, but Duffy really knew more than the teacher. And so we started talking. The class was in St. Augustine, and Duffy lived in Fruit Cove. Little did I know, I knew that I lived in Fruit Cove also. And we just lived a mile from each other. It grew, the feng shui, the love for her, and the love she had for me. I didn't have a sister, but I just lost a sister, if you understand what I'm saying. She's got a veil. And those grandchildren are so precious to her. She will be around them. Brian, you came up to the bat. I didn't know you that well, even though I've known Duffy 4 months after her surgery, her liver surgery. I didn't know the woman. I mean, she's such a strong fighter. We did well with feng shui. Candy back there did well with feng shui. When the houses quit selling, but she's good. She is good. If you hold her hand, she'll make you a winner. Whatever you want to do, she has the strength to pull you and whoever else is holding her hand. Duffy went to the mountains with me, and she took her father's ashes because she had promised him that she was spread them in the mountains. So we took her to Mount Rogers, Virginia. It's Graceland Highlands Park, if anyone wants to look it up. And she said, okay, I think I want to put them here. It's a little walkway. And she did. She started her conversations. And she came back to the car going, there was a current of wind that came back, and the ashes were all Duffy. So I said, Duffy, actually, my last conversation, real conversation, was the 1st of August. We were on the phone, I think it was last of July, 1st of August. And she brought up our trip to the mountains. And I said, yeah, he wasn't going to leave you. He ain't going to leave you. And Duffy's not going to leave us. There's one more thing. I can stand up here and talk about Duffy every day. Because she was a sister, truly a sister. And I've already asked her in prayers, who's going to look after me now? Who is going to look after me now? Because I could pick up the phone as any family member, anyone she knows, she could pick up the phone and say, Duffy, this happened to me. What can I do? Just be calm. And just be with her and hold her hand, and she could bring you through anything. There was a ceremony for Duffy by one of our friends, another sister, because there's 4 of us. And in the ceremony, I guess it was really a meditation. Duffy came to her, dancing, just dancing. And Duffy could dance. Duffy could do anything. And then Duffy had a message for us, the family. And I'm going to share it with you. She said, look for feathers. Look for feathers. Because when you find a feather, it's a message from Duffy. Seriously. I'm going to show you something. I was here yesterday. I went to take my dog for a walk. My little Baxter found this one in our front yard. I found this one stuck in the grass like an arrow. How many times have we ever seen a feather stuck like an arrow, sticking up? Duffy is a girl of the Lord. She's with me. And I thank you, Brian, for loving her so much. You just are remarkable, Dad. And Duffy's been trying to get me to come up and speak, and I said, Duffy made me do it.
And a great job you did.
Oh, well.
All right, anybody else? And I will say that if you don't want to do it here, do it later. Do it over the phone. Yep.
Hey, my name is Diane. I've known Duffy probably 10 years, and I met her through the horses. I was leasing a horse at the time at Clark Bailey's ranch, and got to know her really well through a group of ladies that we ended up naming with an acronym. We had this group called WOA, which was Women Who Own Awesome Horses. And we'd get together, and then as our friendship progressed, some people kind of got out of the horse business here and there, just like you guys did. And but it was always in the animals that Duffy really thrived. I mean, and the energy and the truth and the purity of her. And she really enjoyed working with and for the animals. And one of my most poignant memories of her was about 2 years ago. My horse Surrender had taken ill and he had colicked. And I called her first thing in the morning just to let her know, hey, there's something wrong. And she had appointments that day for massage therapy and some other horses. And as the afternoon progressed, we came to the conclusion that he was not going to be able to be helped. He was nearing 20 years, so a $15,000 surgery in Gainesville really didn't make any sense. And my daughter and I were literally at the moment, we had had this conversation with the vet where he was like, okay, so if this is your decision, then you gotta pick the spot where you're gonna drop him, because you don't drop a horse and then move it. You drop a horse and then dig a hole right next to it. So you have to choose where you're going to euthanize your animal. And my daughter and I were looking out across the pasture, and I heard the chain on the gate. And I didn't even have to turn around. That was Duffy. Always there, right on time. Always there. And she came in and helped me put me down. And I'll always be grateful for that. It's a very difficult moment to do something like that. And like I said, I didn't even have to turn around. I knew exactly who was at the gate. And I'll always be grateful for that. Duffy's one of those people that held us all accountable to our belief systems. Absolutely. She was always seeking truth. She never stopped learning, ever. I mean, what's up with the Scrabble club in French, you know, for a year after she went to Paris, or 2 years, or 3 years? I mean, who does that? And I'm sure Starbucks was like, get the hell out of here, I need a table. But she did really, really hold us true to our belief systems, no matter what they were, and she was incredibly respectful of them. And Duffy was one of those people, if I called her and I was struggling with something, the first thing that she would ask me, holding me accountable to my Catholic beliefs, was, have you prayed about this? Like, seriously, have you gone to your belief system and prayed about this? Because I can't tell you what I think about this, but I'm holding you accountable. I'm a Flint on Flint sister. Go pray about it. What do you come up with? And it's amazing. 2 days ago, I was meditating and had read a chapter in a book that was suggesting to make some goals. And I don't really like making goals. It's not something that I do a whole lot of, but I've come to the conclusion that it's something that's going to be very therapeutic for me. And I thought to myself, I think I'm going to keep track of these, so I need a journal. And I was like, wow, I have some journals like in my nightstand. I know people have given me journals as gifts, and I'm sure there's one in there. So I grabbed the first one that was in the nightstand. It's this beautiful journal about the sayings of Jesus, and each page has scripture on it. And when I opened it, I saw writing on it, and I said, there's got to be, this is probably one that I've used at prayer meeting or something. But I opened it anyway, and there's Duffy, always with an inscription in French. And it was, my dear friend. I love so much our differences as much as I do our similarities, directly related to the belief systems, and just always life and love. She signed everything life and love, life and laughter, and it was happy birthday. And I knew right there, she was just right there. I mean, as always, Duffy was always right there. And so I want to read this poem that someone gave me 2 days ago. It's by Mary Elizabeth Fry. I'm sure you guys have heard it before. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. She's not there. She's here. And all of this love. So, I love you, Duffy.
Anyone else before Brian comes up? Okay, well, I do encourage you to keep having this conversation after this service is over, and then in the future, a phone. People still use phones occasionally. You can actually call Brian and share time or stories with him. So Brian's going to speak. We're going to hear a song, and I'm going to close with a very brief prayer. And that will be the end of our service today.
I got to read my notes. This is probably going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've done a lot of hard things in my life, but I tried to think of ways of getting out of this. There's no way she wouldn't let me. And I have some things I've got to read for the family and things like she asked me to read something, so I will do that. Find my notes. Laughing me, put my glasses on, but I got them there, right? It's really hard because of all the things that everybody has said about Duffy. I never had a Facebook page. My family knows me because I did not want my face on the internet anywhere. Because I ticked off so many people in my life. But I remember a couple of years ago, I have a master's degree in criminology and everything, and I started thinking about going back to school. I wanted to do something for the vets. And Duffy coming from, in a sense, a military family, her brother-in-law was the youngest command sergeant major in the Army. And she said, well, if you want to go back to school, why don't you get a psychology degree? Psychology. It's the last thing in the world for me. But I did it, and I did it online. And she supported me all the way. And after I got it, I started back on a master's degree, and then I realized I'd be dead by the time I got a PhD and was able to practice. So she turned it around and said, well, okay, so use it with the VA. Get a hold of the VA and see if there's a way to do it with them. So to Diane's point, she looked at your strengths, your abilities, and she pushed. When I was with Lauderdale PD, I was happy as a detective. Al can tell you that. We both had a good time. We loved being detectives. Well, why don't you become a sergeant? Because I like being a detective, and I would have to go back on the road. She said, so what? Be a good sergeant. Be a good detective. And she talked me into taking the test. I passed it, and I got it. Now, you understand, when I met Duffy, I was a detective because I was in plain clothes. She didn't see the danger that a patrol officer might see or a patrolman's wife might see. So I got midnights, actually, I picked the ghetto, and it's.
At least it's your phone. So.
Yeah. So when I made sergeant, I got put in the midnight shift and I went directly to the ghetto, which is where I wanted to work. That was the most fun. And she asked me one day, she said, well, Johnny's come in and read with you. My brother Matt rode with me one night. I think that was like a Friday the 13th. Everywhere we went, there was a dead body someplace. She said, why can't I come and ride with you? I said, I was a sergeant, so I could do it. I let my men know that I was there. And I asked her why. She said, I just want to see what you do. And it was a fairly quiet night. But I guess because the guys knew that I had my wife in the car, every time I stopped somebody, I had 4 patrol cars backing me up. And I got out of the car a couple of times along because I was stupid and never really followed the rules as far as the radio was concerned, because I didn't want to be on the radio all the time and say, well, I don't know what I got, so send me 2 backups? Nah. So I got out of the car a couple of times and interviewed a few people in that neighborhood at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we got back in and everything, and I dropped her back off at the station. And the next morning I saw her and I said, so, she said, I'm not worried about you anymore. I said, what do you mean you're not worried about me anymore? I work at the worst neighborhood. She said, yeah, but I watched you. And I watched what you did, and I watched what your men did. She said, you were safety conscious, and that was fine. Now, those of you, and you all know Duffy kind of lived life through rose-colored glasses, is the way I looked at it. And I always told you, you always see the good in everything. I said, I climb into a garbage can in the morning when I go to work, and I climb back out at night. I said, you are always you're never in that garbage can, and I don't know how to do that. And in a way, she did teach me that. Here's some of my notes. Duffy was a successful businesswoman. She's going to have to listen to this. I have to listen to her accolades, and she's got to listen to mine of her. And so do you. Because you all surprised me and helped to surprise me at a lot of my birthday parties, which I still don't know how she did that. She owned 2 hair salons. She had one before she met me. Then she went to work for somebody, and then she opened her own salon. She was a partner in a horse ranch with Al and Sylvia and myself. And now, understand, Al's been around horses. His daughters have been around horses their whole lives. Sylvia doesn't ride, but she loves horses. I never understood that, so you just like being around them.
What, you
I
get
do
thrown off a
now.
couple
I
times?
do. And it was funny because the people at the ranch would tell people, Duffy knew more about horses than any of us. Now, I didn't know, but I know Al knew a lot about horses. Because she cared so much. When Al's daughter or Duffy would walk into the barn, the horses started counting with their hoofs. Because they knew either Amanda or Duffy were going to give them carrots and be nice to them. My mandate is to take her ashes to France. She's already told Susan she has to go again. And I know exactly where she's going. She's going into the French Alps at Lake Once because there's a ranch there. I told some of you the story the other night. We were walking and eating bread and having some wine, and the French do, and in the evening, and there was this open area, fenced, and woods in the back, and we were just standing there, and Duffy said, there's horses here. And I said, there are. And I'm looking around, there's no horses. And within 5 minutes, 5, not 1, but 5 horses came down, and they went right to her. Animals tend to shy away from me. And some people. And she was mad because she didn't have any carrots, but she talked to them all, she pet them all, and we were there for about 4 days, and every day she'd get up and took a walk and said hello to the horses, and they weren't there until she got there. And they came up out of the woods or wherever they came from. For those of you who don't know, in 2011, 2012, she had a blog. Walking in Wisdom with the Animals. I have 27 pages of them, if anyone would like to read them. And I have them on the computer, so it's not like I gotta make 27 copies to send them all out. But I sat and read them the other night. I had an idea of the blog back then when she did it. I just never really got into it. I didn't read any of this stuff. I read every single one of them the other night. And I think the smell of her perfume was her just saying, hey, stupid, see, I told you. Like all marriages, we had our issues and our problems and things like that, but we always worked them out. It was really, really, really hard to stay mad at Duffy. It was really, really easy for her to stay mad at me. I asked her so many times during our lifetime together, why do you stay with me? And it was always, I love you, I don't care what you do, I still love you. And for that I'm thankful, I really am. And my life going forward is going to be empty. And my family, you're going to see a lot more of me than you have in the past, especially around the holidays. She owned a horse called Chance, and she lost Chance several years ago, and I was really surprised. She never went and got another horse. But she did get really into the horse massage therapy, and it was therapy for her, is what she said. She was a private investigator. A lot of people don't know that. She was very good at it. And the law firm she was working for needed to find a witness. Kanahuda Pati. That was the guy's name. He was Taiwanese. And I laughed at it because I helped her as much as I could. Being a cop, working intelligence, I had a lot of contacts. I tried to help her find a witness. She found them, and she found them alone, and she found them in France. So I guess she was destined to be. We planned on living in France. Well, Duffy planned on living in France. So I came home one day before she was diagnosed with cancer, and we started planning my retirement. I had planned on retiring in July. She was diagnosed in May of 2019. I think it was around January there or something, and we were talking about retirement and what were we going to do. And I told her, I said, you've always wanted to go live in France, whether it be Paris or anywhere else. I said, find a place, tell me how much we're going to have, and let's do it. I said, I will give you 6 months. I can't promise that I would live with the French for any longer than 6 months. And she started planning it. She planned a lot of things. And I'll hit some points later, and I'm going to be here for a little bit. Hope you got nowhere else to go. Well, you can, I'll end it. She planned on a lot of different things, and I think the reason she did, she gave herself projects. Because I think that, to her, meant she had to be around to finish them. She had about 4 going before she left. I showed Johnny the other day, we have an old trunk that people used to use when they traveled in the early days, in the 20s and 30s. And she had it refurbished, and I opened it up the other day, and there are, I think there's 20 plastic boxes about this big, and inside that box are plastic boxes, 12 in each, and they are all pictures, and they are all dated, and they are all when we had them. For example, boat trips that we went on. I'd never been on a cruise. I went on a cruise with her. She's got a cruise with Johnny and Kevin came with me. There's pictures of Don and Lizzie and myself going skiing in Colorado. And believe me, all of our vacations, I didn't plan a single one. Duffy planned. And she was my guide, I guess you'd call her. She had the GPS in her phone. She'd tell me where to make the rights and lefts. I would argue with her, and she would win. She really believed the adage that men, when it comes to directions, we don't have them. And even the GPS I argued with, she couldn't understand it. She found different ways to get places. She developed happy horse therapy, became a certified horse massage therapist. I was amazed at what she was able to do. Then she moved on to amateur photography. And I looked at her photography, and those of you who have gotten greeting cards from them, they are probably her pictures. If you look on the back, her name's on the back. And I had said to her a long time ago, I said, babe, you know, these are great. Why? She had a website, Happy Horse Therapy. I said, why don't you, let's find a printer and make up your cards and sell them on Happy Horse Therapy. She said, no, that wouldn't be any fun. Making money is not any fun. She said, no, this I love to do. If you make me do a business with it, then it becomes a hassle. And she said, I don't want it to be a hassle. I want it to be something I like to do. Okay. And I still have all of the photos. There's like 3,000 of them. She put this together. She put most of this together because she didn't think I could handle it. She was so worried, she told Linda she was worried about leaving me alone because I didn't even know how to turn on the oven. I do know how to turn on. I just didn't know how to cook on it, other than fry some vegetables. Johnny can attest to that when I used to come to the house. She talked me into it, and we both became Reiki masters. We went from, there was 3 classes, and we went to all 3. She bought a massage table so we could do Reiki on each other at home, which turned out to be very pleasurable. She had a way. She always had a purpose. She had a love for France. She planned on living there, I talked about. She made 3 separate visits during her lifetime. The first time I took her to Paris before she had the transplant. The second time, we did I guess you'd call it a tour of France. We flew into Charles de Gaulle, and then we went to Bordeaux by plane, and then from Bordeaux we went by train to Nice, to Lake Onsay in the French Alps, to Paris was our last stop. And everywhere she went, that camera went. There were times I wanted to take it and just throw it away because I couldn't get a picture of her other than her doing that. So I was really surprised how many individual pictures there were of Duffy because I didn't think I took enough. She was always taking pictures of them. So, and yeah, I think she did get it from Dominic. I don't know. My brother-in-law. Susan actually went on the last trip with her. She asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, well, I don't know. I said, well, yes, Sue. Your sister? I said, yeah. Okay. I'm amazed. I would love to know how McCoy got along with my wife. And the funny part about it is when I met Duffy, and she found out I had a big family, she just kind of migrated to us. Her biggest fear was Susan. She wasn't afraid of me and my brothers. She met Kevin early on, and then I started introducing him to you slowly. We're tough to take in a group. Yeah, we're dysfunctional, but in a good way. But I said, well, what do you worry about Sue? She wasn't even afraid of Mom. She said, she's the only girl in the family. She said, if I don't have her approval, I don't have anybody's approval. And I guess you approved of it because she stuck around for a long time. You won her heart. She loved every single one of you. I've said this a couple of times, and I'm going to keep on saying it. And I'm finding out a lot about my wife I didn't know, but in a good way, in a very good way. That's why the stories were. I get my Duffy stories, believe me. She has a unique relationship with each and every one of you that has nothing to do with the other person in this room. She did. And I know from all of the 300 texts and emails and phone calls that I got during when she went into hospice that she must have 300 best friends. Everybody. And she made you feel this way. You're all her best friends. I could say, well, living in California Island, I don't want to leave you out. Shaleen and Pop, I hope you're on. I'm waving to the cameras for those who don't know. And her love was unconditional, a lot like my mom's was. You know, 7 boys and 1 girl in my family. Me, the oldest, is the next. I feel sorry for her, but actually I think she was better off because she can kick all of our butts and put us in our place. She even boxed with us on Friday nights. And let me get through this, otherwise she'd be over it. She taught herself French. Diana alluded to that. And I think it was once a week, they went and they played French Scrabble. Her friends that were learning French, and there was a French woman and a couple there that she went to learn French. And she learned French. Now, the first time we went to Paris, she would bonjour and a couple of other words that she knew. She did not know French. And at one point, I told her to stop. Because she would say bonjour. And naturally, French would talk to you in French. And it took me 10 minutes to shut them up to get them to talk in English so I would understand. And after that, when she came back, she started studying. The second time we went to France was a lot more pleasurable because she did converse in French, but she conversed. She was able to talk to people. And I would ask, well, what they say? She'd tell me what they said, and she understood. And she did very well at it. Every once in a while, she'd throw some French phrases at me, and I just kind of look at her, and she'd go, I'm telling you, I love you. So, oh, okay, I'll accept that. She amazed me in that. Then she got into Tai Chi about 2.5 years ago, I want to say, when we first moved into Del Webb. And then all of a sudden I know she's going for certification, and now she's teaching classes. And I heard them on, actually, the last week of her life, the Friday before the last week, to put it that way. She had a bar stool there, and she was sitting on the bar stool doing her Tai Chi on Zoom. And I heard them say, okay, well, now we're going to do the Duffy. The Duffy? And I asked one of the Tai Chi people here yesterday, what's the Duffy? Duffy looked at the ages of everybody in the classes. Not you, Elizabeth, because you're young compared to your class. And she always, 2 things she worked on from the time she was diagnosed that she would need a liver transplant to her leaving was her mental acuity. She did crossword puzzles till they were coming out of her butt. Every day she did a crossword puzzle when I got the newspaper. I stopped the newspaper because it ticked me off. And I started reading online. So she went online and found crossword puzzles to keep her mentally going. The other was balance. She read someplace that as you get older, you start to lose your balance. You gotta be careful of your balance. I know that because every time I go to the VA, have you lost your balance at all? Because of my age. So she taught her that her thing was all balance to these folks. So, and they loved it. They loved it. If her whole Tai Chi class, I think there's about 30 or 50 of you, they'd have all been here. And you were right. I could probably fill Jaguar Stadium with the people who would have showed up. I don't know that I would have enjoyed all that. One of the reasons I came in and sat in the front of the room was because I was not spending time with my wife, and I wanted to spend that time with her that we have left here. You're right, Diane, she's not there, but she's in this room, and she's not going away. She received a liver transplant in 2003, and it's funny. We were in the elevator, and let me tell you something. W was the kind of person, I did not know if she was going through with the transplant until we were in that elevator going to the operating room. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing? She says, I'll go through with it. Can I have a pony? You can have whatever you want, just come out of that operating room. And she did. They told her that she would probably need another transplant in her lifetime. And she looked at me and she said, not happening. And I said, well, what if you need it? She said, no, I'm never going to need it again. And she was right. During her treatments, from after we had gotten out of the hospital, they put her on this one drug, and it started to affect the liver. Now, I have a lot of faith and a lot of, I owe Mayo, I guess, a lot of accolades for what they did for her. The oncology team, or hematology team, whatever you want to call them, and the liver team worked together. And when they saw that it was starting to damage the liver, they stopped that treatment, put her on another one. She was on seven total different treatments. She would get to so many cycles and it wasn't doing any good, and they would do another one, and then another one, and another one. And I gotta tell you, the woman never, ever complained. She complained about the doctors, she complained about idiot nurses. Debbie knows it, because Debbie's a nurse, and Debbie listened to her. She complained about medications. She was ticked off at one medication because to her it meant that I wasn't going to retire because of the amount. And I told her, I said, if you want me to retire, I'll leave tomorrow. I have mixed emotions about the virus because of it, I've been working from home since March. Duffy's been there. You know, we've had breakfast together. I go to my conference calls, I work with my folks. Lunchtime, I have lunch with her, and on the days that I was taking her from LA, I would go to the hospital with her, and we spent the day together. So since March, I spent a lot of time with my wife. And what's funny about it is they forbid us to go into the offices, and I have 4 squads of detectives that work for me. We couldn't keep the guys out of the office. They kept going in. And I called up one of the detectives and I said, look, you know, why are you going into the office? He said, I got to get away from the wife and kids. For years, they bragged about wanting to work from home, and they got the opportunity to work from home, and they didn't want to be there at all. And that included the women detectives. They didn't want to be home with the husbands. I had no issues being home with Duffy. We let each other live our lives. She wanted to do something, and I didn't. She did it. She didn't have to have my permission, and I didn't need hers. We gave each other that space, and I think that's what really helped us over the years. And if I haven't, when I was out in Seattle when she was diagnosed with cancer, but when I got in, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went up to the hospital to see her. And she wasn't crying or anything. She just said, you know, I was crying. And she said, it's okay. She says, I don't have any regrets. She said, we did everything we wanted to do from the day we met. We're going to have a pot to piss in. Pardon my French. But it's not French. That's me. That's just me. We did the things we wanted to do. She never skied in her life. I had skied because I have an uncle that skis. We went skiing in Laurentians in Canada. We went to Acapulco. She went parasailing. She was willing to try anything. And I realized she was never afraid of anything. If she wasn't sure of something, especially with animals, she would read up about it. And her attitude was, and now I know why, the lizard would get in the house. You know, the cat would catch it. Wasn't dead yet, though. We'd get the lizard away from him, make sure it was still alive. There were times where I waited for mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And she would let the lizard go. And I just kind of let it go. You know, she wasn't in the house, it got stepped on and torn out in the garbage, but that's me. I don't like bugs, so Vietnam did a dangerous thing to me when it comes to bugs right now. But in reading her blogs, she made a deal with the bugs and the animals. If you come into my house, I won't kill you if you allow me to let you go outside. If I step into your area outside and you know, like a snake or even a tiger or something, if you ran across it, her attitude is, I will leave if you want me to. So that's the way she kind of looked at things. Anyway. When she was diagnosed with the cancer, she was given 2 to 6 months to live before we even got out of the hospital. She looked at me and she said, they have no idea who they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
She defied the odds. She lasted for a year and a half. Even when hospice told me that she only had a few hours to live on Wednesday, I looked at them and said, I doubt it. And she was fighting. She was restless. And I asked the nurse what was going on, and she said, when I met your wife, she told me she was not going easy, that she was going to fight all the way to the end. And believe me, she did. But she was in no pain. Now, my only concern was that she did not suffer. Because she never told me about all the suffering she went through from 2003 to this day. It was just the way she was. Well, when she told me that, I just kind of laughed. She lasted another 24 hours. And when she left, she had a smile on her face. Honestly, gosh. It was funny because she left and I looked at her and I thought, okay, I need to call hospice, and I wanted to walk around the bed to give her a kiss. I walked around the bed and that's when I saw the smile. It wasn't a smile, it was kind of a smirk. Hey, I made it. And Ani's interpretation of Duffy is that she's happy where she's at. Ani does, I don't know whether she's a shaman or whatever you call it, but Duffy believed in the things that she talked about. She did all sorts of things as far as spirits go that I didn't even know she was involved with. I know she had debates with you, Diane, about the Catholic religion. And she never put anybody down for their religion. She never argued against that religion. She asked questions. She wanted to know why you thought that way. Why did you think that? Why do Catholics believe in the Blessed Virgin Mary and things like that? She had a thirst for knowledge about religion. And she didn't have one particular religion. When she was growing up, she gravitated towards the larger families. The Scullens, if you're listening, she sends you her love. So she would go to church with them. She would go to church with other denominations. It didn't matter. She went because she wanted to learn what they believed in and to see if it would work for her. And she had her own. I think it was war with the animals. Despite her health, she lived life to the fullest. I honestly believe she got up every morning and lived her life as if it was the last day. She got up at 6:30 in the morning with a smile on her face. And the boys know real well we don't like smiles in the morning. And she said, I don't care. And you know what? Since March, I've been waking up with a smile on my face. She got me. It's too bad she had to get that sick for me to do that, but I did it. And she went to bed with a smile on her face. And all day long, she did things that made her happy, but also made other people happy. I used to tell her, I said, you know, you're the most selfless person. You don't take anything. I said, why don't you have somebody do something for you? She says, you do it every day. I said, what is that? You're here. I said, okay. I'm going to read these because in reading on the Facebook and on all the cards that I have at the house, these people think they're all going to get thank yous. The thank you lady's gone. That's why you want to pick up this flag on the desk card. Kevin made a comment the other day. He said, nobody can move because the address. She sent down an address list twice a year, and she sent down an anniversary and birthday list every year. To all the new additions to our family and everything else. She even included the Edmundsons. She had a list for the Edmundsons, and she had a list for the Quinns, my cousins, Jack and Carol, and them. She put together their mailing address list. Pop, I'll get you your stamps. Every year, Pop got a roll of stamps for the year, a calendar with all of the dates for the anniversaries and birthdays for all of his grandchildren, children, great-grandchildren, grandnieces, everyone. And I honestly believe she was putting together a pack of cards so that he wouldn't even have to, and she may have done that, so he wouldn't even have to go out and buy cards. Now, Johnny always bought him duct tape every year because he duct tapes everything. And Duffy made sure when Johnny was small that Johnny had at least 4 or 5 rolls of duct tape. Now he buys them color-coded ones. And she loved him dearly. She called him every time she talked to him on the phone, how you doing, you dirty old man? But she made him whatever he liked to eat. Didn't matter what the rest of his wanted. If Pop wanted spaghetti and meatballs, he got spaghetti and meatballs. She knew he wanted to eat the minute he walked in the door. So she always planned for everybody to get there a little bit earlier than Pop, because when Pop came in, you were eating. And I can remember somebody saying, well, we gotta wait for Bruce. You never wait for Bruce. Bruce is not here, but he sent me his condolences and yo-ho. Bruce is a Buddhist, so I know he and Caitlin will be chanting for him. Even that, you know, we have Buddhists in the family. Kevin got me to chant, and at Glenn's funeral, I think it was, Bruce asked that we would do chant. Al and Sylvia were there, and we were both kind of like, okay, the people that are here are really going to think this is weird. But we did, and Duffy chanted right along with us. That was what Glenn believed in, that was what he deserved. And that, you know, all the things that she did that I didn't know about, but the things I did know about made me love her even more. Now I'm finding out all these other things, and it's tearing me apart, but in a good way. Hey, I ain't doing too bad. All right, described by friends and family. She brought so much happiness to us all. Grateful for all the love and laughter she gave us. A bright light that never dimmed. She was larger than life. She stayed strong up to her last breath. She was loving, upbeat, and fun. She was a force of bright and positive energy. And Sylvia said it best when she said she embraced things. And I use that word. She embraced everything she loved, and she conquered it. She embraced death, and she did. We never had a conversation about her dying. Only what I was going to do to make sure that you were all taken care of in certain ways, and that I would do what she wanted when she passed. Duffy said, I'm not dying. I'm moving on. There's another realm, and I'm going to it. And I honestly believe, maybe she's convinced me. I know I grew up Catholic, but I really wasn't practicing, and I don't plan on going back and practicing. But I have my own way, and part of it is Duffy's way. Just the things that she's taught me. And I'm going to keep you crying for a while, Michelle. She asked that we celebrate her life and not mourn her passing, so we've had some laughs here. She didn't believe in death. She saw it as a crossing into another phase of existence, and she honestly had no regrets. During her last week, she put together a list, prior to her last week, of things she wanted to do yet. Again, I think she planned them because if she planned them, she had to be here to do them. She wanted to go ziplining with the boys, her grandsons. She wanted to swim with dolphins. Somebody here, I don't know, was Pam, somebody swam with dolphins, and they did Alex, whatever. She wanted to swim with dolphins. She wanted to visit the animal kingdom in Disney World. She wanted to revisit Sedona. She spent just about a week out in Sedona with Pam. Pam was doing some runs, and she was babysitting with Alex, and she got very close to Alex. All you had to do was give her 15 minutes with a child, and that child loved her forever. I make a joke, we'd be at family parties. Everybody look around, where's Duffy? Where are the kids? She'd be rolling around on the floor, and you're living, because your kitchen, you'd be sitting at the kitchen or the countertop and looking in the living room, and she'd be rolling around on the floor with the kids. She had more fun with them, I guess, sometimes than she did with us. I said to her, she said, we get too serious, the kids are never serious. And that was something that she liked. Christmas was always an experience. She bought more presents than the real Santa Claus ever brought. If there was a birthday and a child was getting a gift and that child had a sibling, that sibling got a gift so they were not jealous. She was not going to give one kid a gift and not the other. I never interfered with that. All I did was she'd say to me every year at Christmas, how much can I spend? And in the beginning, I would give her limits because Duffy would go crazy. In the end, I told her, whatever you, not the end, but the last 10 years or so, I just told her, do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to be penny pinching and watching my money. I will tell you this, I'm looking forward to my next American Express bill because there will be no Amazon. She's got to have contributed to their stock somewhere along the line. I mean, I get 50 different things, they're all minor. And I knew they were all going out to you, the family and other people. She didn't buy a whole lot for herself. She usually got things for other people. Everyone's special in their own way or another to her. She formed a special bond with Mary's son Jake. I can't tell you how much she loved that child. There wasn't anything she wouldn't do. She loved to go to Tampa. She liked seeing everybody, but she was going to see Jake and Mary. There was no two ways about it. Hang on there, Mary. Nobody was really more special than the other. It was just a different relationship. And she adored this kid. And I think the reason she did is because he's got the fighting spirit. Yeah, he's got a mother that's kicking his butt, making him do it. And Duffy loved that. And she was so proud of what he could accomplish. And that was one of the things she said, I want to see Jake one more time. I want to see Jake one more time. She had a dentist appointment with Larry. What was it, last week or the week before? She was so worried about it because she wanted to go. I said, why are you worried about the dentist? Chris and Larry, no, you're in hospice. No, I want to go see, I want to see them. She liked the people in your office. And I knew one of the reasons was she was going to see Jake. She went to Mary's classroom and played with the kids that Mary was teaching. And, she came back and raved about what Mary was doing with the kids and how she taught them. And I feel bad for Jake because she's not going to be around, but I'm sure Mary's going to make sure he knows about it. I had my knee replaced. And Mary was coming over for some horse therapy for Jake. Mary was worried about intruding on me. I said, don't worry about me. I'm going to sit in my chair, I'm going to take my oxy, and I'm just going to be quiet. What was nice was I had a walker. Well, Jake had a walker. So we had to race it. That kid's got more spirit, and he's got as much spirit as she had. Years to come, it's going to be interesting to watch Jake grow up. She always made sure Pop had his stamps and he got whatever he wanted for dinner. When we traveled, wherever we went, she planned it. I went through her yearbook just out of curiosity to see what people wrote in the 8th grade. Crazy, fun-loving girl, great personality, full of fun and laughter. And then she had a blog. She watched the squirrel for 3 hours build a nest in my backyard. That's not the funny part. A couple of weeks later, a couple other squirrels are building a nest in about the same area. And her comments in the blog are, they must be young because they're not doing it right. Wait a minute, you know how squirrels do? Yeah, she looked it up and read it and watched these squirrels build their nest. That was Duffy. She saw animals as her spiritual guide. Her attitude is, animals never try being anything else but what they really are. She used a cat as an example. A cat can't catch the lizard. He doesn't sit there and go, oh, I wish I was a bird so I could catch that lizard. He's a cat. He's going after the next lizard. She's talking about people. People are always trying to be something they're not. I don't think that woman ever tried to be anything that she wasn't. When she was in the hospital and diagnosed, and Tim came up to see her, she had already told me this. She said, well, I'm going to work on his heart. I'm going to ask him and his boys to spend Thanksgiving dinner with me on the beach. And Tim didn't bat an eyelash. She was concerned with the boy's mother, Debbie, and I think she contacted Debbie direct to find out if it would be okay. And Debbie's a good lady. She said yes. His mother and father, his adopted mother and father, she was worried about being accepted. The first day she met him, his mother's a hoot. She's a little tiny thing, but she could run circles around half the people in this room. And she came up, gave Duffy a hug, and told her how much she loved him. And Walter was the same way. They accepted her. I was with her when she met Tim. I was sitting, and before I met him, I was sitting, she told me about the fact when I first met her, she told me about Tim, and she had given him up for adoption when she was 16. She ran away because she didn't want an abortion. She did not want that to happen. Her whole being, as far as you were concerned, she didn't know the boys were there at the time, was that you were in a happy family life. You weren't somebody that was a drug dealer got a hold of you, that you were abused, or any of those were her fears. When she got sick, she was really concerned that she couldn't get a hold of you because hers is genetic, so she wanted to make sure you didn't get any. You know, you kind of looked and watched your health. She still makes fun of you for wearing cheaters instead of buying the glasses that you need. Yeah, it takes a while, right, Bill?
Yeah.
And she was nervous. Her biggest fear was that he would reject her. And Johnny knows that feeling himself. And Johnny asked me last night why she never said anything. And I think the reason that she never talked to John about it, because she knew he was adopted, was that she was afraid that he was going to be mad at her for giving up a child. She didn't have a choice. Mama rose the roost, and Mama's the one that did it. She actually put her in a home. But she had a picture of you. I don't know where it is. I've been trying to find the Polaroid. So one of the nurses gave her a picture of you. And when we met him, Duffy's back was to the door, down to, was it like an area somewhere there in a restaurant. And he was walking up the ramp, he had flowers in his hand. She was going to be on time, blah, blah, blah. She's coming in the door now, and says, how do you know? I said, got a bouquet of flowers, and nobody's walked in yet. By the way, the flowers the boys you gave her the other day when you were over, they're still alive, and all the flowers everybody else gave her, they're dead. Must be something special. Oh, by the way, none of you would do this to me, I would hope. Don't send me plants. I feel sorry for my Palm Beach office because they sent me a plant that's this big, and when a woman delivered it, I thought it was one of somebody's friends, and I said, what are you doing with that? She said, it's yours, put it in the corner. I said, who are you? I'm the delivery. I said, oh, okay, sorry. Lights on the back porch, still dark. I'm not a plant. And she told me, any plants, please get with Jean down the road, down the street, she'll take my plants. Oh, okay, I'll get your plants down. That flower that's out there somewhere, you see, that flower only blooms after midnight. She stayed up all night just to get that photo. And I think she won a prize on that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she spends 2 years scanning all of my mother's pictures into the computer so she could give everyone in the McCoy family a flash drive with all my mom's pictures. Because the way we do things in Pop, he had them all jammed in a bin, in a cardboard box, and then his apartment flooded. So they just threw everything into another room, pictures included. When Duffy saw that, she went out and bought all plastic bins. And she filled those bins with his pictures and asked him if she could have them for a while. Every time I saw Pop, when's she going to give me back my pictures? When are you going to look at the pictures, Bob? I said, you'll get them back. And she did. She gave them back, every one of them. She was afraid that they would get ruined and we wouldn't have those memories. And she's got, and I've already opened it, she's got a box of her growing up. You know, some of the pictures that you see up there that she picked. I have to laugh because Debbie and I were talking yesterday, and Debbie asked her why she was doing this with the pictures. Why didn't you let your husband do that? And her response to Debbie was, would you let Roger do that for you? Debbie kind of said, oh, okay. And she's right. She was right. Something to show you how, I mean, the way she was, especially with my profession and everything. After Andrew, Hurricane Andrew, I spent a lot of time down in Homestead with dogs and packets, collecting, helping the cops down there because they lost everything. And every year, all the FOPs, Fraternal Order of Police does Christmas for police officers' kids. Fort Lauderdale did it, all of them did, and the Homestead Police Department was going to do theirs. And Duffy asked me, he said, Brian, I'd like to do something for the children. She read it all, and she heard me coming home talking about the devastation. And when I thought it was back in Vietnam the first time I pulled in to Homestead. You know, everything was demolished. It was like a bomb hit it. And I, you know, naturally I'd come home and I would tell her about it. She said, I want to do something. And I said, well, they got their Christmas coming up. I said, I don't know what you could do. I got the perfect idea. She bought a Christmas tree. She put it in her salon. She asked me to get all the names, and I did. I wrote an email down to the chief down there, and he sent me the names of all of the children of the cops who lost things in the hurricane. And she made up paper ornaments and put them on her tree in her salon. And every one of her clients that came in, how about donating? How about buying a gift? Just take it and bring the gift back with that card so that I can give it to that child. And when she told me what she was doing, I was like, okay, you know, we'll get a few gifts, we'll bring them down. 2 vans. 2 vans to take the gifts down. Her and I and Amanda, one of her good friends who could make it. Hopefully you're watching, Amanda. Drove down when Santa Claus came and gave all these gifts. I mean, the cops were unbelievable. Well, they couldn't thank her enough. They were just, why did your wife do that? Why, you know, she's married to a cop. We don't get that. We don't do that. Yeah, we do. We have Christmas every year for our kids. So all she did was add to it. What made her even happier was one of the cops came over to her with his wife. His little girl had one of these little small pianos, and it got washed away and was damaged in the hurricane. And one of her clients actually bought a little piano for her, and they were elated. My mother was in tears, and we just smiled. And they wanted her to come up and make accolades and all that about her, and she said, no, this isn't my day. This is the children's day. We're leaving. I've given you what, you know, they needed. Unreal. This is like, she had even started her own eulogy, which kind of ticked me off. I sort of little note. It was only 3 lines. She didn't get very far. Because this is something I wanted to do. But she started off with, if you love someone, you can still hear their laughter even after they're gone. And that's true. She said she had completed her assignment on Earth and was beginning her celestial journey. You're done with this, you don't have to listen to this. I'm going to read the letter to the McCoy family. When I saw this, I was like, oh God, it's going to be 20 pages long. But it's only 1 page. She had a list. Probably everybody in this room, well, she said the family was tough because there were too many of us. She had a list of people she was going to write letters to, and she never got to finish. The McCoy family. There was no way I could write each of you a letter. I am trying to conserve some energy here. You have welcomed me into a large family, one I never had until recently. You have made me laugh harder than anywhere I've ever been. I love that no matter what, no matter how mad you get, you are all still family, and you will protect each other the best you can. Susan, you're tops, because you went to Paris with me. Even if you had to stand on the corner with the gendarmes at the American Embassy, because you couldn't get in. To all of you, I wish happiness, and to all, lots of sugar. Now, this is something she wrote. She wanted someone to read at her funeral, and since I'm up here, I'm going to read it. Peace, love, and happiness. This is from her to all of us. The train. At birth, we boarded the train and met our parents, and we believe they will always travel by our side. As time goes by, other people will board the train, and they will be significant in, for example, our siblings, friends, children, and even the love of your life. However, at some station, our parents will step down from the train. leaving us on this journey alone. Others will step down over time and leave a permanent vacuum. Some, however, will go so unnoticed that we don't realize they vacated their seats. This train ride will be full of joy, sorrow, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes, and farewells. Success consists of having a good relationship with all passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery to everyone is, we do not know at which station we ourselves will step down. So we must live in the best way love, forgive, and offer the best of who we are. It is important to do this because when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we should leave behind beautiful memories for those who will continue to travel on the train of life. I wish you all a joyful journey. Now with the last of it, I don't have anything else to say. I love her dearly. I'm going to miss her. And like I said, my family, you see a lot more of me. You would have seen a lot more of her if she was able to travel. One of the things the virus did was it stopped her from traveling because her immune system was really shot. She didn't care about masks. She just didn't want to be the one to get this damn virus, irregardless of whether it was just a bad flu or it was a pandemic. Her attitude was, I gotta stay. I want to stay as long as I can, and I'm not gonna take a chance. When I went to Singer Island, she told me when I came back, before I left, she said, when you come back, I'm taking your temperature. If you have a temperature, you sleep within the guest room. So if I have a temperature, I'm going to a hotel. I said, there's no way. And that didn't happen. All I can tell you is that she never talked about death because she didn't believe she was going to die. She believed in just the transformation. And she honestly believed that. She's going to miss going to whatever that store was you and her, and Allie and her and Stephanie used to go to. Hi, Steph. Hope you're crying a lot. Suzanne, you don't have to say thank you to everybody on Facebook. And Scott, you can't touch your food anymore, so she didn't have to worry about that. She had aversion to people touching her food. Scott found out the hard way. Like I said, each of you had a unique experience with her. I know my nieces and nephews did, and your children have. To this day, even before she died, make sure you say hello to Tony. Lisa's son, Mike. For some reason or other, she decided he was Tony. When she wrote a letter to her son, she had Mark McCall instead of Tim Reich. Her way of kind of being funny, I dig, if you will. I just remember that day too. She walked into, I was watching TV, she walked in the living room and handed me an email. I don't remember the exact wordings, but I think I'll get it right. I'm not quite sure how to do this, so I'm going to come right out and say it. I think you're my mother. I was sitting there laughing, sitting there looking at it. I just had a big old grin on my face because I knew how happy she was. Like he said, they had just opened up the rolls and he didn't waste any time, and she was writing her letters to look. And she said, how do you feel about this? I said, well, I got a stepson. You have a stepson, now I have one. I said, and then we found out that she had grandchildren, so I have some step-grandchildren. Believe me, I'm going to be a pain in the neck because I got to go down and watch Curly Head over there play basketball. I told you I was not going to stop. I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I'll get by, I know. My sister's gotten by. My sister-in-law's gotten by without her husband. I'll make it. Christmas is going to be unique this year. My birthday, because there won't be any surprise parties. Actually, she was planning my 80th. She was planning the 80th. She said every 20 years. Because I told her, I said, yeah, you got to stop this. My bank account can't take it. Anyway, Duffy, I love you dearly. Everyone here loves you dearly. And wherever you are in this room, we are going to miss you. Please keep an eye on us, keep us safe. Again, I love you. Thank you. Not me.
Now we get to hear that song you picked out.
Oh, good.
I hope you do.
Well,
I've done a lot of services and I've heard a lot of music over the years. I thought that was one of the better ones. That was good. Let's have a quick closing prayer and you guys can continue with the discussions. God of life, we thank you for the life of Duffy McCoy. She was well loved and admired by so many people. And we know there was good cause for that, more so now than before we all came in here today even. I believe she may be looking down and smiling today, knowing that she so positively impacted the lives of so many people. But I pray for those that will miss her, especially Brian. I pray that you would grant each person here your peace, which you tell us can only come from you. May each of you here today go and take that peace with you. Amen. Amen. That concludes our time together. Thank you all for coming.
we can say on the bottom, if anybody wants to.
single one, there's just one without a smile.
Right.
But like, she has all the answers.
Yeah,
I wonder
she
if
has
she's
that
been
mind.
looking.
Believe me. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, so, all right. Well, we're with you, buddy.
We got to.
All right, appreciate it. All right.
I said, I know, this is okay, she's all right, she knows all she can do is pick up the phone. That's great. Thanks, Larry, I appreciate it. Thanks, Philip. I gotta get lunch. No, I just gotta get it done, it's Corey, kiddo. Or your name, I think. If I have a picture, I was gonna bring you that don't have it, you would have went down the stairs in Colorado with just
Yeah.
accidentally
Yes, I remember that.
I
I think I felt all the time.
Whatever it takes me, whatever she was doing for him, I would be doing that, okay? You stay for lunch. I made it. I figured if you could do it, I could do it. You did good.
All right.
No, I did good, because you ain't doing what you did.
Thank you.
Apparently the video worked real well.
You did good.
Because,
I sure.
I just get texts.
Oh, wasn't great.
And they say the video worked real well. That was why I was just afraid you wouldn't.
See you later.
Coming around in a few minutes. Because everybody leaves, I'm leaving. It's called the Duffy Celebration of Life